one.
This is Parker Hesse.
This is Sam Branks.
You have the pleasure of listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast, featuring your hosts, Bo Freeborn.
You know, guys, even though we get 2 conference losses, we're still going to end up 9-3. We're going to win the West, for sure.
Dylan Pond.
Here's the thing, fellas. I'm going with it. 12 and 2-0, baby. We're going to do it. Let's fucking go. Woo!
And Rob Wall.
I mean, that would be shocking. But we can do it. I mean, I think we can.
So crack a tall boy and go Hawks.
Oh, welcome into another episode of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. I'm Rob.
I'm Dylan.
And I'm Bo.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Oh, a fresh bush latte to start off this podcast is the best way to do it. And we are unofficially sponsored by Busch Light and also Miller Lite.
That's right.
So shout out to our unofficial sponsors. Thank you guys for, providing this extra crisp, light beer, that we can enjoy while we talk about the Hawks. And boy, do we have a lot to cover tonight, guys. And you'll notice it's just your main hosts, the 3 that can be. We are here to talk about the Hawks. We normally have a special guest on. We ran into some issues this week, logistically with there was some illness. And so we're just kind of putting this one out before the game. So that way, all tomorrow, Saturday, you can listen to it. Because, guys, tomorrow night at 6:00, we got a away game at Northwestern. And so a lot of time between now and then. So you'll be able to get the listen in. How are you guys doing tonight?
Feel good, babe. Let's go.
I'm feeling good, Rob. I'm feeling good about ready to get this Madtown game behind us and ready to get going, ready to get started with the rest of the season.
Yeah, you said it, Dill. And we're going to talk about that. We're actually going to head right into the rewind right off the bat here. If you guys, didn't know, if you've been living under a rock, if you were away on vacation, whatever it is, unfortunately, Iowa lost to Wisconsin a week ago on Saturday. It was an 11:00 game. We lost 27-7. Now, it was an away game at Camp Randall. Bo, you were at the game. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what that environment was like?
I'll be honest, and I actually talked to a buddy of mine who's a Wisconsin fan. And for those of you who don't know, they don't let the students in right away until the start of the first quarter. So I looked over at the student section. And I was thinking, like, dude, there's so many empty seats. What is going on here? Sure enough, they filled up by the time halftime came rolling around, and the place actually got pretty rocking. But for the most part, it was pretty tame. And then, as you guys saw, Wisconsin dominated the game. Iowa really didn't have much of a fight at all, especially having 3 turnovers. But other than that, man, it was a sea of red. It was a ton of fun. They were super welcoming to all of us Iowa fans, and it was a pretty awesome atmosphere, I will say. If you guys listening ever decide to go to Camp Randall, you won't regret it. It's an awesome place.
I agree with you there, Bo. Been there a few times myself, and that's a fun environment. They're rowdy. They're a lot of fun. I remember we went there after Iowa beat the brakes off of Ohio State at home. I think it was literally the week before. And when we were there, that's the first thing they said. They were like, "Hey, Iowa fan, F you, but good job last week." Like, yeah, my drunken cheering from Section 133 had a big impact on the game. I do agree, but there we go, right?
Yeah, dude, it was cool. Like, the game itself was not cool. We all talked last week about how Iowa was not going to win this, or Iowa was going to win this game, and that the West ran through Iowa City. But after watching Wisconsin's defense just outplayed offensive line, and Wisconsin's offense looking a lot better than Iowa's, it's almost evident that Wisconsin is still the owner of the Big Ten West, and that we're going to need a miracle to get through and get a West title here.
We're going to need a Wisconsin loss. And we're going to have to win out, basically, is what it comes down to. The Hawks are 6-2. The Badgers are 5-3, but we're both 3-2 in conference. And then obviously Wisconsin's got the head-to-head with us. So
yep, we're tied with Purdue, and then Minnesota's got the 4-1 record right now. But guys, I know a lot of this was talked about last week, but Petras only went 9 for 19, 93 yards. He really didn't have any time to sit back in the pocket and throw. I think our offensive line play really wasn't great.
Oh,
and
hot garbage.
And
it wasn't great. That is underselling it. Like absolute hot garbage. I remember at one point I'm yelling at the TV to get Nick DeYoung out there. And then they trotted in Jack Plum, and it's like, oh my God, get Nick back in there. This is horrible. At least Nick was only letting guys through once every other play. Jack Campbell, you might as well have had a brick wall standing there, just run right around them. Unbelievable. Go on, Bo. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, you're good. I mean, and that's what everybody sits here and blames the O-line, and then they blame the quarterback and they blame Brian Ferentz. It's like, you know what? We got to figure it out as fans. But watching the game, it was pretty evident that we just have a ton of youth on the team and just don't have a bunch of experience and depth. I know Kirk Ferentz even talked about that in his presser too, but it's like, think about all these guys that are playing right now. Linderbaum is the only one with true experience. And I'm going to shout out David Eicholt for saying this week, but who we're missing is our X factor from last year, Mark Kallenberger, who decided not to come back. If we could have had a true tackle on either the left or right side who had a ton of playing experience, and somebody of his size and maturity that could be stable, at least on one side, I think this offensive line is getting a ton more praise, this far into the season, as opposed to getting a ton of shots fired at him this last week for underperforming 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. I think that's exactly what this offensive line is missing, is that typical veteran tackle presence that we're so spoiled and used to as Iowa fans. You go back as far as Robert Gallery, Brian Balaga, Brandon Sheriff, Riley Reef. I'm probably missing a few in there as well. Andrew Donnell. I mean, we have some studs that are still playing in the NFL, and Iowa, they lack that this year. Obviously, we have that with our anchor and Tyler Linderbaum at the center. All-American, future NFL player as well. So I'm with you, Bo, because we discussed this too. The recruiting classes, they speak for themselves in regards to this offensive line, where there is a ton of talent there. And for those recruiting naysayers who don't necessarily think it matters that much, it does. You look at some of what would be veteran classes, and we have a lot of guys that frankly didn't make it all the way through to their senior year. Tyler Linderbaum's class being one of them. And obviously Tyler Linderbaum came into Iowa as a defensive lineman. So not a lot of people remember that, but that is what it is. So some recruiting misses there. And obviously that's part of the game. So now, these guys, they have to grow up in a hurry. I'm shouting out you, Connor Colby, who I think for the most part played okay, but definitely did not play good or play great. I'm shouting out Mason Richmond over there on the left side. Again, played average to maybe below average, but not horribly bad and not very good. So, and you got to give credit where credit's due. I think Leo Chanel was his name, first name Leo, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, I forget what his first name is right now, but Chanel, that linebacker out of Wisconsin, played out of his freaking mind. Kudos to him and that entire Wisconsin D. They're stout. They're going to be tough for anyone to beat. And just to go to show you how tough they are, comparing the sack numbers. So the Iowa defense, that's known for their defense, 0 sacks. The offensive line and the Iowa Hawkeyes gave up 6 sacks. That is absolutely unacceptable.
They're the number 2 defense in the nation for a reason. I mean, they're good, but I tell you what, I think Iowa's defense is legit. I think Iowa's defense is a lot better than what they played. But man, they couldn't stop the run. And I think that's credit to Wisconsin's O-line for beating the D-line. And that goes directly into what you're just saying, Dill. We didn't have any pressure all day because we were on our heels, because what they were doing was doing the run to set up the pass, right? Like what we always talk about. And when that happens, more of the times than not, the pass play is going to get completed for a first down, as we saw a ton of third down completions by Wisconsin, really at their will, almost exactly like what happened against Purdue 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah. And you're right, Dill. It's Leo Chanel.
Okay. I
So
thought so.
nice work. But yeah, I mean, that was an amazing defense. I thought they made their presence known. We only had 156 yards of total offense as a team. I mean, that's kind of unbelievable to me. And I guess it's believable because we, don't have the greatest offense. We're going up against an elite defense. But I really thought that we had, been able to sort of game plan for that, and after watching the way that we played so miserably against Purdue, I thought there was going to be some changes. And even at halftime in the Wisconsin game, I thought, okay, obviously Spencer Petras doesn't have a lot of time to throw back there. Let's start looking at some quick read options. Let's see what we can do with the offensive play calling, and not to really call anybody out because it's tough to call plays when the quarterback doesn't have any time or, to do anything like that. If the offensive line is going to be basically a turnstile for the D line. But I mean, I just think that something needs to happen. And, whether it's just Spencer Petras, it doesn't seem like he has any sort of ability to escape or get out of the pocket or sometimes step up into the pocket to throw the ball. He's sort of rooted into the ground. And I think a lot of fans, and you saw it on Twitter, after the game where they were like, oh, we need more Padilla because he made a play, where they ran a couple bootlegs with him where he was able to escape and they hit Sam Laporta down the field, which was a nice little gain for our offense. And really it was one of the only sparks that I saw on the offensive line, or I mean on the offensive side of the ball during the game. But a lot to
Rob,
unpack there. But what do you think about that?
One thing that we always talk about here too, Rob, and I think you mention it every single week, is not only time of possession but turnover battle. And we had 3 turnovers. The 3 fumbles absolutely killed us, especially Ivory Kelly Martin's there on the goal line, hitting him right in the chest and then going straight down. That put us in a really bad spot, especially with how backed up our offense and how bad our offense had been doing at that time.
Oh, absolutely. That's just disgustingly horrible is, I think, the best phrase for it. And then the same thing as well with Max Cooper, fumbling that punt return. And that's going to happen. People will absolutely hate this coming from me because I've made fun of this quote as much as anybody in the world, but that is football. That's football. Kirk Ferentz, quote unquote. And, you have to recover from that. But we talked about it a few years back playing Wisconsin at home, with Sean Beyer, having that punt hit him. Teams like Wisconsin, you cannot turn the ball over once. You cannot turn the ball over twice. 3 times, it's going to kill you every time. And that's what it was. The hole was just too big. And, and our best fight against it was running 2 fullback dives in a row, which, Kirk said it himself after the game. Oh, do I wish I had that call back? Absolutely. But, I mean, I think we all saw my tweet where it's like, or our tweet. It's our account. I apologize, but that is inexcusable. Now, I called out Brian Ferentz on Twitter. I did, and I'm a Brian guy. I like Brian. I'm one of the few that actually wouldn't mind him potentially being the next head coach. But then come to find out, once they called that play, the guy that called the timeout, Kirk Ferentz, comes out of nowhere. And then we run that fullback dive again. So us Iowa fans, and, I had this discussion with some fans on Twitter as well. Do we have a right to be ticked off? Absolutely. Frankly, we do. We don't sound like Nebraska fans bitching and whining and wanting the 90s back. It's okay to criticize, these high dollar play callers, like the Brian Ferentzes of the world. That's absolutely okay. And it's okay to criticize these decisions while at the same time understanding hey, 4th and 1, we're driving, we got momentum. We just did a fullback run, got stuffed. What's the play call, coach? And by the way, you have 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you think about it like that, but these guys get paid the big bucks for that reason. So that being said, we can absolutely criticize them while still understanding it. But I don't know. I mean, after you see, that Ohio State game back in 2017, where Kirk pretty much told everyone, like, yeah, that was all Brian's play calling. It's like, I don't understand why you don't take your, let go of the leash. Let them run. Let them be free. Let's see what this offense can be with just Brian. Now, that being said, there's going to be some growing pains to go along with that. And I think we've seen those, especially these past couple games. So yeah, overall, I guess my thought process there is, criticize the coaches, support the players, and let's see what we can do with the rest of this season. I think, we have 4 very winnable games left on the docket. And for some reason, I didn't pick those out. But just off the top of my head, I know we got Minnesota, Illinois, Northwestern, and Nebraska. So it's like, okay, 4 very winnable games. I think, obviously number 1 in the West right now is Minnesota. And not to get too far off track here, but Rob touched on it earlier as well, there is a path to win the West. Bo brought it up with Wisconsin, where they got Rutgers, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Again, Minnesota's number 1 in the West right now with the 4-1 conference record. So, there's potentially a speed bump there where if Iowa were to win out, they could potentially win the West. The other team that Iowa's tied with currently is Purdue. They got Michigan State, Ohio State, Northwestern, Indiana. Sorry, Purdue, it's not your year. Minnesota, 4-1 right now, and they got Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, and Wisconsin left. So you look at Wisconsin and Iowa are those 2 big tough games for them, where I think if Iowa wins that game and potentially beats Wisconsin, we're going to be the biggest Minnesota haters one week and the biggest Minnesota fans literally that next week, as long as Iowa takes care of business. So Iowa has made their own road. They've made their own destiny incredibly, incredibly tough, but it can be done. And that's got to give us a little bit of hope. And we got to, I don't want to say flush it because we're fans. We don't have to flush it. We can be pissed off about losing to Purdue and Wisconsin back-to-back weeks for the rest of our lives if we want to, but that's not going to do any good.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, let me say this. If Iowa wins out, right, and then Minnesota beats Wisconsin, and then we beat Minnesota, then we would be the Big Ten West champion. That would literally be the most Iowa way to win the Big West or the Big Ten West than ever. It's just like just a mud fight, just people beating on other people, and like no one's in the, we're going to be dropped out. All the teams, it seems like, could be dropped out of the top 25, and we would just be in the Big Ten championship against, Michigan State or Ohio State or whoever.
But that's Big Ten football, right? Like that's you're in, you're out. That's Big Ten football at its finest.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, any reasonable fan is going to look at these next 4 games and say, if Iowa goes 3-1, we'll be pretty happy. 9 wins, a chance, at a pretty good bowl game and potentially a 10-win season, which Kirk Ferentz considers a good season. So, but that's not what I want to see, guys. I want to see, I'm tired of coming in second. I'm tired of coming in third to Wisconsin in these Big Ten West sweepstakes. Now, we should have talked about this last week to get the boys a little more fired up, especially those boys on the offensive line. But that being said, it can still happen. It can still happen for our seniors. And I think that'd be an incredible accomplishment to go to Indianapolis and get our asses kicked by Ohio State. I don't care what anyone says. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
it'd be fun to go. And I honestly think that we could compete too. Honestly, if we went out, I really think that this Iowa team can compete, because I think that there's a lot of growing to do. But if they went out, they find ways to win the next 4, that means something has happened on the offense and it's clicked and we're ready to go.
Right.
No,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Final thoughts, guys. I think we should just move on. We kind of vented our frustrations. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention that we didn't cover real quick. What is our response to fans calling for Padilla or Deuce Hogan? Should we stay the course here? What's our stance on that?
You know, if you asked me this question before that Wisconsin game, I would say you fans are morons. Stick with your racehorse. That being said, now I'm not saying that Petrus needs to be benched because I think that's the wrong answer. But I think this, if this if this staff were mine, if this if these players were mine, I'm playing NCAA football 2025. If these players were mine, what I would do is I'd set up just like his own little package of plays where it's like, okay, yeah, we're getting the shit rushed out of us right now. We need some mobility here on 3rd and short. Yeah, throw Padilla in there, see what he can do. I don't see anything wrong with that, especially because Petrus, we all know he's got an absolute cannon for an arm. He's an excellent, I wouldn't say excellent, but an excellent option at quarterback on 1st and 2nd down. I think where he's really hindered this year is his 3rd down ability because he doesn't have that scramble ability. So a jailbreak blitz, say you got secondary back in man, they're going to be able to cover that. Assuming no receivers get beat or no receivers beat cornerbacks and that kind of thing. And then Petrus is a sitting duck. So nobody wants that. So that being said, overall, I guess my point is no, I don't want to see Petrus get benched. I think he should still be the starter. I think they should ride with him because he's shown the ability to play the quarterback position at a high level. That being said, I would like to see a little bit more of Padilla's mobility utilized.
Also, Dill, Petrus only has 4 losses total as the starting quarterback. What is he? 4, 6, no, 10 and 4. I mean, that's a pretty damn good record. Like you said, speaks to his experience. And I mean, hey man, I'm gonna ride with him. He's a good quarterback. I'm riding with him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to at this point, but it does leave something to wonder about. These other players on the roster, these other guys, we've seen Padilla. We know that we've heard about how good he is. We saw him. I thought it was a little, I mean, you got to look at the situation, but I want to say that it was refreshing. But we've watched a full half of 20-0 Wisconsin. You know what I mean?
Right.
We watched 2 punts, 2 fumbles, and then 2 more punts before half. So, I mean, it was tough to, to watch that. So seeing somebody come in and be able to actually make things happen was kind of a breath of fresh air. But so I can understand that.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to show you, the future of the quarterback position at Iowa is in good hands. I do think Alex Padilla is going to be a stud. Now, there's a difference between seeing somebody throw the ball 6 times versus seeing somebody throw the ball, quarterback the offense for 55, 60 plus plays. So,
True.
Now, I wouldn't say he's necessarily ready for that, but I think he proved he's ready for a role in the offense of some sort, and
I think so too.
Is worthy of that backup quarterback position.
So look out, Hawkeye fans, for number 8, possibly, getting some reps. But I mean, just to kind of it's to quote, or I was going to say to quote Bill Belichick, but this is more of a Kirk Ferentz deal. It's just obviously we're going to ride the hot hand, and I feel like right now it's Spencer's to lose. And although he hasn't played amazing, we really haven't. The offense doesn't heavily lean on him to throw the ball. So as far as like managing the game, I think he does a decent job for what the cards that he's dealt.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of Bo's lukewarm takes when he's supposed to have hot takes. Like, I was not riding the hot hand because they don't have a hot hand at the quarterback position. They're riding the lukewarm hands of Spencer Petrus. So
Spencer, cool hand Luke Petrus.
Cool hand Luke. I don't know about that. I see him shaking in 3rd down situations. So yeah, just flat out. I'm not even going to place blame anywhere. I'm an offensive line guy, so I place a little more blame there, and I get that, but the whole offense sucked. Receivers couldn't get open. Tight ends couldn't get open. Offensive line couldn't block. Running backs couldn't do anything because the holes were getting blown up. It was just bad. It was just bad. And then you hand it off to Ivory Kelly Martin trying to get a little spark and, get the backup running back a little PT. And what does he do? He just drops it. He's like, the ball's too hot for me. I don't want that.
Interesting to note that you brought that up. Ivory Kelly Martin, one rush, his first touch of the game, fumble. That was his last touch of the game. And I would not be surprised if that is the last touch for the season.
No.
And no, actually,
No?
I'm with Rob on this one. I do think that is the last time we've seen Ivory Kelly Martin carry the ball as an Iowa Hawkeye. I really do. I think Kirk's leash is a little bit longer for those upperclassmen, those leaders in the program. However, no, I think he's in the Ferentz doghouse. I think they love him. They love everything that he brings to the team and the leadership he brings to that running back room. But we have seen Ivory Kelly Martin carry the ball for the last time as an Iowa Hawkeye. Hot take.
Okay.
That is hot.
One more thing I want to bring up, guys, before we move on. And only because I've been sort of trying to keep up here, this week with the news. There's been a lot of reaction over these past 2 games that we've dropped as a team. And just kind of rounding out some of the key players of this offense. So we talked about the quarterback. We talked about a little bit about what we think about the play calling, the offensive line. But I do want to bring up an interesting one that they talked about Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy Jr., number 3. He has 13 receptions for 89 yards and 1 touchdown on the year, and that's through 8 games. That's tough because we've seen the kind of plays that he can make. He's a playmaker. And to his credit, I think Spencer was asked about it in the media recently. And he's just had nothing but the best things to say about Tyrone. He said he hasn't been, disgruntled. He hasn't been, upset or anything like that. He's basically just been a voice of leadership and unselfishness and just been saying like, hey, it's about the team. We want the team to win. But if I'm looking at objectively the Iowa offense, I mean, here's a guy, if we get the ball in his hands, he is, similarly, plays similar to Amir Smith-Marset. I mean, he's a playmaker. I think we got to get him the ball.
Yeah, that's the problem. We got to find ways to get him the ball. And I think Brian was asked about it multiple times, and he's like, hey, man, we just got to figure out a way to get him the ball. And to be honest, they just haven't been able to do it. So, I mean, kudos to Tyrone Tracy. It sounds like his family has definitely voiced some frustration, which arguably, that's probably the right thing to do. But it's tough. We need to get our playmaker the ball, especially somebody who is touted as a first-team All-Big Ten at the beginning of the year, only having so many catches at this point.
This is going to sound like coach speak coming from me, but I got a little tough love for Tyrone. I'm not with this coddling bullshit that everybody in the world seems to be giving him. Get open. I am getting open, but the quarterback's getting hit. Okay. Then be a leader and come up and tell your offensive line to buck the fuck up and give Spencer an extra second because I'm getting open. Like, that's so I get it. I get the frustrations, and you don't see Tyrone out there putting them out himself. It's obviously his family, but nonetheless, it's pretty evident that he is frustrated. Get open sooner. You want the ball more? Get the ball more. To me, it seems very simple. I don't know.
I get that. I mean, it's just hard all the way around. You're not getting time to throw to make the reads that he needs to. If he's getting separation, it just seems like, misconnections, is what it looks like to me.
And one positive thing I will say about that, because I just gave my boy Tyrone some tough love, and that's what it was. It was love, because I do love him, and I think he's a stud. That being said, what wide receiver in the world do you know that doesn't think he gets the ball enough? I mean,
Kinda-
I wouldn't want that guy on my team. I want guys that are competitive and that want the ball every throw. So I get where he's coming from. I do, but get open. Quit your whining.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. So, well, we can go ahead and move on. I just wanted to address, some of those different things, different aspects. The whole team's dealing with adversity right now. The fans are dealing with adversity. So, I think it's time we just move forward and look at this Saturday's game at 6:00 in Evanston
You got it.
for their game at Northwestern. Now, I got friends that live in Evanston. Visited them. They're just right next to Northwestern. And it's a cool little area. I mean, it's just right outside of Chicago, obviously. But we're going to go ahead and have to, destroy the hopes and dreams of the people who live in Evanston, the team, everyone who's a Northwestern fan. We need this game bad. And unfortunately for Northwestern, they drew a Iowa team coming off 2 losses, and I really don't think it's going to be close, guys.
I don't either, Rob. And I guess I thought the same thing about Wisconsin. So maybe that's a little bit more wishful thinking on my part. But with a Northwestern team that has a lot of struggles stopping the run. This is essentially the feel-good game, right? Northwestern's been having a down year. On paper, we should be able to run down their throat all night, and win a classic Big Ten ass kicking that ends up like 28-7. That's on paper, right? But not so fast, my friend. We are playing the Fighting Fitzgeralds. And I remind you guys every year of how much I hate this human being of a man. Because when he was playing at Northwestern, guess what happened every time they played Iowa? Hayden Fry and the boys came in and just beat their ass every single time. I looked it up. I think it was last year, possibly the year before, that scoring margin, and it's bad. It's, I think like Iowa won on average by like 36 points, something like that. So just absolutely abysmal Northwestern program from back in the day. And Pat Fitzgerald apparently remembers that because he's got a winning record versus Kirk Ferentz right now, 9-6 versus him since he's taken over the Northwestern program. So you can't count these guys out. They're going to come ready to play. They've had a little extra pep in their steps all week, and they're going to come out and put forth their best effort. So it's on Iowa to shut them up early.
It really is. And, you're talking about a team who was down. I mean, last year, it was either last year or 2 years ago, they were Big Ten West champs. Now you're looking at a team that lost Isaiah Bowser, arguably one of their better running backs. And then they lost their starting running back also to an ACL tear, I believe. Quote me, correct me if I'm wrong. But they're dealing with the injury bug this year. And, it's almost unfortunate. But as Iowa fans, we look at Northwestern and say, dude, fuck that. Fuck Northwestern. Because, again, they're like a team like Purdue. They always have us. They always beat us when we should beat the shit out of them. So yeah, I agree with you, Bill.
Absolutely. They're just a thorn in the side. Pat Fitzgerald came out after a game a few years back, and they said Iowa does nothing fancy. You know exactly what play they're going to run when they line up, and it's on you to stop it. And, there's a couple Wisconsin defensive players that pretty much said the same thing, where it's like, we all know this. We're not dumb. We watch the games. Iowa is predictable. I feel like I'm right 75% of the time calling plays from the stands. Like, oh, yep, stretch right. Oh, stretch right. How'd you know that? Oh, I've watched Iowa football for 20 years. Like, it's not difficult to figure out. Really isn't. And I don't think it's meant to be, because Iowa prides themselves so much on execution. But you got it spot on. Like, Fitzy's got their number, and that's why I hate the human being of a man.
Well, this Northwestern team is unranked. They're 3-5 total. They're 6th in the Big Ten West. This team so far has had wins against Indiana State, Ohio University, and Rutgers. They've lost to Michigan. They've lost to Minnesota most recently last week, 41-14. It was a blowout. They lost to Nebraska 56-7. They lost a close one to Duke, and they actually their first game of the season they played against Michigan State and lost 38-21. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to not feel like this team is not really going anywhere based on their record. But obviously, as we've talked about this, this is not a team that we can sleep on. This is a team that has a coach who, knows us as well as we are, probably better than we know that these guys. What's interesting to look at when you look at this Northwestern team, they got a few different quarterbacks that they have been kind of throwing out there. They've experimented with Hunter Johnson. Looks like Andrew Marty is another one of their quarterbacks that they have, had seen some playing time. But it looks like the guy who is going to be the signal caller this Saturday is Ryan Helinski. He's the one who sort of is kind of command of the offense. But it's interesting. I mean, it's almost like a three-way sort of tie, when it comes to the quarterbacks. I don't know if we're going to see like a Purdue situation where they're kind of just cycling guys in and out. But it looks like, from on paper that from the stats that these guys put up, I mean, all three of them seem to be sort of interchangeable.
Yeah, and what's crazy about that, Rob, is even if one of those guys is not injured and they continue to rotate in and out, they're 3-5 right now, so they're going to throw the kitchen sink at us to do whatever they want to try and get bowl eligible. I mean, they got 4 games left in the season to try and get bowl eligible. So think of anything that you can, trick plays, any sort of anything on offense or special teams. They're going to try and do it. So we may see 2 quarterbacks, we may see 4 quarterbacks. They're going to do whatever they can to get us off balance and score on our defense.
Yeah, and Bo, you're totally right. We're going to see a lot of that, and doing a little bit of film study on these guys as well is you see. I wouldn't say a little bit of everything, but they have an excellent left tackle, and I want to say it's Peter Skoronsky, something like that. A guy that Iowa was after, and a guy I was pretty bummed out that picked the Wildcats over the Hawkeyes, and. But that being said, when they run the ball, it's pretty predictable because they haven't had a lot of success running the ball this year. So if they do run the ball, it's going to be behind that left tackle. So, it's going to be on our ends containing. I think, I'm be curious to see what kind of look they come out with, whether they're coming out with a 4-3 or that cash look. So I think you'd probably slightly prefer the cash. However, Northwestern's a little bit more of that pro team. So I think you're going to see a little bit of both. You're going to see a lot of Kayvon Merriweather this game. So that being said, it's going to be on our linebackers flying around and stopping the ball. And I think that's going to be a big strength for the Hawkeyes in this game and for that Iowa defense.
And Jermani Harris is going to play again. He's going to start again at the cornerback position over Riley Moss, with Riley Moss sitting out one more week. So I think it's a great idea to sit him, get him 100% healthy before bringing him back, especially against a subpar Northwestern team.
Absolutely. No, I think that's the way to go about it. And I've heard some criticism there too as well, where some were calling Kirk a little bit too much of a player's coach because Riley Moss claims he's 100% ready to go, but Kirk's looking out for his NFL future as well because he's projected to go in the draft next year. So I don't know that I buy that. I think Kirk wants to win every game, but he just wants the best for the kids. I think that's one of the reasons kids come to Iowa, and Kirk has such a relationship with the parents because everybody that plays out there is like a son to him. So I think he's just doing the right thing by his guy, and Jamari Harris is a perfectly capable backup. He's proven that time in and time out. He hasn't been getting smoked versus Wisconsin. So he's been okay. He did decently well versus Wisconsin, in my opinion. So I have no issue with that whatsoever.
And I misspoke earlier. I talked about Ryan Helinski being the guy calling the plays, but I just wanted to look back because there has been multiple quarterbacks who have played significant time for this Northwestern team. And actually, most recently, to kind of give an update here, as far as the quarterback goes, looks like Andrew Marty had played the majority of the time against Minnesota. And I don't know if that was a situation where, hey, we're just putting in the second team because we're losing so bad, versus Ryan Helinski. But I mean, Andrew Marty is the one that's listed first, and it's 10 for 16, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns against Minnesota. And I'm not sure if that's against the second team. Like I said, Ryan Helinski in comparison, 1 for 6 for 5 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So it's kind of hard to tell just looking at the box score. I'll continue to look at it, see, what their depth chart sort of looks like. I'm going to actually look that up here, but I just wanted to kind of verify that with you, with the listeners out there. So that in case, they tried out Andrew Marty starting quarterback, I don't want people thinking back, hey, Rob, you said that I said it was going to be Helinski, So I want to make sure that we get it right. But yeah, I mean, looking back, guys, Northwestern, they don't have Isaiah Bowser anymore like they did last year. But Evan Hull seems to be the guy. 15 carries last game for 107 yards. He averaged 7 yards a carry, and his longest was 30. So I know that they got some pretty talented guys in the backfield. It's kind of what the
Yeah, and he's kind of the highlight of their offense right now. Like I said, they've had some success running the ball behind that left tackle and Skronsky, and so he's definitely one to watch out for. And it's just going to be typical contained football. I think on the defensive line, you're not going to see those boys out there making a lot of tackles for loss and not necessarily padding the stats. But this is one of those games where you see Jack Campbell, Seth Benson, and potentially Justin Jacobs go off. So let's go.
Perfect. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes as far as this game is concerned. It's going to be at 6:00, like I said, in Evanston. And actually, I just looked up the depth chart, and it does look like Ryan Helinski is listed ahead of Marty, although Marty is the senior and Helinski is a sophomore.
Right. I think we'll see Helinski start this game, Rob. I think you were right. But that being said, I also think we're going to see all three of them. So, yeah, because like Bo said, I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink and ride the hot hand and see what works. So it's going to be on our defense. And that's a kind of a funny segue. Am I right? Or am I right? To Dylan's keys to victory. Now, Dylan's keys, for the long-time listeners, even you first-timers, so I typically like to go through my previous week's predictions and my previous keys to discuss how I did. This week, you fellas may have noticed, I did not include them on our weekly outline because they were all just horribly wrong, and I'm just going to take the F. I'm saying where, you remember high school teachers back in the day, they're like, yeah, we'll give you one exam that you can just flunk. You can just flunk and we'll call it good. We'll waive that one. We're waiving that one. Okay? We're waiving that one. So I did bad. I failed. That's my outlier. I'm usually spot on. And I plan to continue that this week, starting with the offense. Offense's number one goal this week. We have to protect the quarterback. I'm looking at you, offensive line. I've given you some heat. Tyler Linderbaum, get these fellas going. I know you lied your ass off to the media and you said they were close to breaking out. Get them going. Make them serviceable. Come on, be a leader out there, and let's impose our will on a slightly inferior defensive line. I think we're going to do it. That being said, we got to get the offense going. I don't care how. It can be running the ball. It can be passing the ball. It can be Spencer putting the ball in between his legs and duck walking for a touchdown. I don't care. Let's get some positive yards. Let's get the offense going. Let's get a little bit of, momentum going for the rest of the season. So let's go. Any way, shape, or form. Defensively, we got to capitalize off turnovers. It is absolutely imperative. No turnovers these past couple weeks. That can't happen. Our offense, frankly, just isn't good enough. So defense, you got to help the offense out a little bit. Let's cause some fumbles. Let's get some picks. Let's do what we can. And then it's on the offense to capitalize off of those. So we need the turnovers. And then special teams, I'm not going to go anything crazy. I just want disciplined special teams. I'm looking at, Max Cooper we want Charlie Jones back there returning the ball, and I think we're going to see that a little bit this week. And no discredit to Max whatsoever. I think he's one of those redshirt seniors that decided to come back for another year and help this team out, and we genuinely appreciate it. But he also had no business being in there. So I just want to play disciplined, turnover-free special teams ball this week. Oh, Bo says Charlie Jones was hurt. I don't care. I'd rather have a hurt Charlie Jones in there. So let's go. Go Hawks. So yeah, disciplined special teams. And Hawks, Kirk, Brian, Phil, you guys listen to Hawkeyes and Tallboys? I know you do. Every Friday night over a few brewskis. Or for Kirk, we all know he likes St. Pauli's girl. That's his beer of choice. So he's going to have a St. Pauli's girl and listen to Hawkeyes and Tallboys and take my thoughts into consideration. And let's go get a W in Chi-Town tomorrow.
Love it. Absolutely. I hope that all goes right. Dylan, we know if they would just listen to you, then we would be, not 8-0 going into this game right now.
And a lot of people say that, Rob. I think a lot of people in this world have gone through life saying, if I would have only listened to Dylan, if I would have had that one more beer, if I would have made that bad decision, maybe my life would be different right now. But what can we do? So people have regrets. You just got to learn from them. And I forgive Brian and Kirk and Phil for not listening to my suggestions last couple of weeks. And I think they've opened up their suggestion box to the fans like us. So
good.
Yeah, no, they haven't. Let's be real, but
well, if they haven't, they need to. If you have friends that don't listen to Hawkeyes and Tallboys, you need to get them in. You need to take them under your wing, introduce them to a new podcast, because obviously we're just speaking the truth. We just want this team to put their best foot forward. And for the last 2 weeks, guys, or 3 weeks rather, they have not. And they're going to look to change their fate this Saturday at 6:00 against the Northwestern Wildcats in Evanston, Illinois. The weather is going to be a nice 56 degrees in Evanston tomorrow at 6:00. And so it's going to be partly sunny. I think it's going to be excellent weather for football, excellent weather for November football. To be honest, it could be snowing. And so right now, guys, that kind of brings us into a nice little area where we like to look at the game, look at the betting lines. We want to give you the best information that we have, the most recent information, so that way you can make the best decisions and make the most money. If you like to put money down, if you're in a state that it is legal to bet on college football, then I applaud you. And obviously we're in Iowa. And recently, guys, Barstool Sportsbook has been live in Iowa. So now we got pretty much every sportsbook you'd really want.
And if you're not in a state where it's legal, get a bookie. I did it in college. It's a good time. Not that we're recommending you do illegal activities, but you can find a bookie. Just go to your local towny bar. You'll find a bookie. Go on.
Perfect. So right now I'm just going to give you the lines that what we're looking at. And right now, so in this section of segment that we like to affectionately refer to as our degenerate section, is sponsored by DraftKings. So thank you so much, DraftKings, for being our unofficial sponsor, for giving us all the lines for this weekend's game. But right now, guys, Iowa is -12 as far as the spread goes. We're favored by 12 points. The over-under for this game is 40.5, which isn't as low as it was last week, but it isn't as high as it's been, sort of right in the middle. Iowa money line is -475 odds. Northwestern's +350 to win outright. And that's according to DraftKings. So when you look at these lines, guys, obviously Iowa heavy favorite. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can kind of start out here. I really think that Iowa's offense kind of gets it going, but unfortunately not at the rate that we'd like to. I shouldn't even say that too. I think that we're going to win the time of possession battle, thankfully, due in part to Iowa's run game. And I think that we're going to see a heavy dose of Tyler Goodson. And honestly, we're going to see a heavy dose of Gavin Williams. As you guys both alluded to, Who knows if we'll see Ivory Kelly Martin, but it'd be great to get Gavin Williams touches because he's a bigger back, heavier back, and we're just going to run the clock out. We'll probably do a couple things to get Petrus involved, so he can get some more confidence in his pass game. So I like what you guys have to say about the Hawks, or I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, but I think the Hawks roll this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you're a smart betting man, you're taking the Hawks to cover that spread, and you're parlaying it with the under because, and you'll see why in predictions, but I got to say Iowa normally hits the under, so that's going to happen. And I think for the most part, Iowa does a pretty decent job covering the spread as well. So with the exception of these past couple weeks, obviously. So I got Iowa and the offense rebounding, and I got the defense coming up big as well. So take Iowa on the spread and take the under.
Perfect. That kind of, nicely glides us into predictions, guys. So I'd love to get your thoughts. Maybe we can go down to Bo. And what do you predict this game to look like?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Dill. I think we take the spread, but we take the under. And I know, again, we aren't going to like this outcome, but a win's a win. I'm going to go 20-3 Hawkeyes, win by 17 points. But I don't think that we score as many points as what everyone else thinks. Again, every time we overshoot, I think Iowa underperforms. So I'm going to keep it at that 20-point range. I think we get a couple field goals that we obviously don't end up turning into touchdowns. And I think our offense does get rolling. And I think that 20 points is sufficient against a really bad Northwestern football team. Dill, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to win this one 35-0.
I would love to see that. That's
It's
interesting.
Happen. It's going to happen.
That's the spread in the under, just like you said. I also think spread in the under, guys. So we're 3 for 3 when it comes to that decision. But I actually think, and this is funny, I was going 21-6. So you're thinking 20-3, Bo. We're right in the same ballpark.
You bet.
And then Dylan's off in his own universe, 35-0. That's my blind faith, kids.
But at the same time,
no,
I'm with
this Hawkeye team.
I'm with Rob. I would much rather have it 35-0 than 20-3 or 21-6.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, obviously.
Perfect world.
I'd rather eat a big Reese's than just a little 1-pack that you can buy or that you steal from your kid trick or treating. You know what I mean? But yeah, either way, you're still eating chocolate. That was the worst analogy in the world. And for the listeners, I apologize. That was just bad. So
I loved it. Either way, you're still eating chocolate. So I wish there was an over-under on turnovers. There isn't. I was just looking under game props for DraftKings. It's got to be like Iowa minus 1.5 or I guess
yeah.
1.5.
Well, let's play hypotheticals here because we're all gambling addicts. It's all good. Yeah, I would take that over. I think Iowa does come out and get turnovers this game, and I think you're going to see a fired-up defense. And I don't know how they're going to do it because last week I know I predicted a few fumbles, and that obviously went the other way and bit me in the ass. So I don't want to say how I think it's going to happen, but I think this Iowa defense is going to turn it around this week and get back to the mean and start getting some turnovers again.
I hope so. Well, that leads us right into hot takes, baby. What kind of takes do we got that are too hot to handle?
I got one that's too hot to handle, and I know you guys are going to laugh at me, but Iowa's going to get the offense going. And don't tell me that's a hot take or not a hot take. Do not tell me it's not a hot take. Because I think everybody in the world thinks that Iowa's got a trash offense. They're going to get it going Saturday night. Hot take, sizzling.
So I'm gonna go with that too, and I think the Twitter quarterbacks are going to shut the hell up. I'll be honest with you. This is going to be a hot take in its own, but Iowa fans are so dramatic. Like, I love our fan base. Don't get me wrong, but God, we are so fucking dramatic when we lose and when we win. It's so hot and cold. It's unbelievable. Every sport. Everybody's sore losers. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm a sore loser myself, but like, Jesus Christ, sometimes I look on Twitter, it's almost fucking depressing. Anyway, where I'm going with this hot take, not calling out anybody here, just where I'm going is
just
the Twitter.
Everyone, go on.
Yeah, the Twitter world is going to be happy again. Hawkeyes are going to get back in the win column here. and all the Twitter quarterbacks thinking that Brian's a terrible play caller, that Peters is a bad quarterback, and the O-line sucks. Everybody's going to shut the hell up and finally see a good Iowa team performance this weekend.
Oh no, I like that, Robin. And I was giving some people smack on Twitter too, because everybody was hating on Tyler Barnes, the recruiting coordinator for Iowa, his comments where some moron reporter was like, yeah, hey, do you know what has the recruiting effect been like after these past couple weeks? And Tyler Barnes is like, fine. Thank goodness these 16 and 17-year-old kids aren't as bipolar as our fan base. That was the PG-13 version of what he said, because he said something a lot more respectable than that, and people just lost their minds. It's like, how dare he put out such a bad product and then come out and say that? It's like, it's true. I can't remember what Iowa recruit it was. I want to say it was Bo Stevens a few years back, but he had such a great quote when it comes to recruiting. He said, a lot of kids look at this the wrong way. It's not a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision. Because when I leave that school, I'm going to be a graduate of said university. I'm pretty sure it's Bo Stevens. You guys can look me up on that if I'm wrong. But yeah, we're a fragile fan base, and I'm part of it. You guys should have seen me. My poor dogs that you guys probably hear in the background running around, they looked at me terrified several times. After the 2 fullback dives in a row, like, I was calling for everybody's head. I wanted everybody fired. Luckily, I have some self-control that, I only broke 1 of my 4 windows. So, thank goodness for that. But
Rob, you have any hot takes?
Hot takes for me. I want to give I really want to give you a hot take about how the offense is going to do amazing, but I just can't. I just haven't seen it. I'm scared. The offensive line is literally like the basic building block of anything being good on offense, and I just haven't seen it. And I hope that they turn it around, Dill, and I hope that everything you said happens, but I can't give a hot take about the offense. And I'd love to give you a hot take about the defense, but I don't think it'd be hot because they're already good. And they played really well, honestly, against Wisconsin for all the things that they were on the field for forever. They were always backed up against their own end zone, so they were just doing the best with the cards that they were dealt. But I'm giving you guys a hot take this week about the special team. And I think that we return a kick for a touchdown.
Love it. That's awesome. That's a great take right there, Rob. Love that.
Because there's been a few times where Charlie Jones is just one guy away, before he gets to the kicker, and then it's see you later touchdown, taking it to the house. I think Charlie Jones has what it takes. He's shifty. I don't know, what it is, about the way that we line up, or just maybe it's Charlie Jones, just like, raw talent. But the first guy never tackles him. And he's been able to find creases, and like putting us in great field position. Not that we do anything with it, God forbid, but he's just, been able to really, he's a fast guy. He's very shifty. I think that he's someone who has what it takes to return a touchdown. Remember that year where Emir Smith-Marset said that he was promised us a kick return touchdown. Charlie Jones hasn't.
Did it.
And he did it. He came through on his promise. So I'm saying that, like, obviously, like, Charlie Jones hasn't promised that or, to us, but he might as well have with his play. I want to see it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a great game to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I could see it happen.
So that kind of wraps things up for our prediction, guys. I want to see what do we got from the mailbag?
We got nothing. I think the fans are, still a little distraught about the last couple losses, and it's hard to blame them. And
they're probably watching Iowa basketball right now, playing Slippery Rock.
That's a good point. You had the Iowa Hawkeye basketball teams watching Slippery Rock or playing Slippery Rock, and then as well as the Iowa wrestling team getting ready to go. Did you guys see that they sold out season tickets? So.
And sold out. Was it Minnesota and Penn State both?
Yeah,
both those
Minnesota and Penn State are both sold out already. So that's That's just wild. Tickets hadn't even gone public yet. That's insane. So yeah, that Penn State meet is going to be one for the record books. I know the one a few years back was as well. So that's going to be a fun one. I'm pretty fired up about wrestling season coming up. But we got a Big Ten championship to win first.
That's right. Let's go Hawks, baby.
Let's
Great
go
episode
Hawks.
tonight, boys.
Good episode. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And we're going to go ahead and close it out as we always do with a little Hawkeye victory polka as soon as I get that pulled up here.
All righty, let's go Hawks. What do we say? Come on now. In heaven, there is no Miller Lite.
Because it's a shitty.
Or Busch Light. Yeah, because this is shitty beer.